Hey everybody, my name is Sara Elise. I'm an astrologer in Toronto, Canada, and this is a newsletter on November the 25th on Monday for the new moon in Sagittarius that is occurring tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, the 26th of November at approximately 9 a.m. Eastern Standard. So I want to talk to you today about the meaning of this moon and the meaning of the archetype of Sagittarius and how we can work with it in our own consciousness. What I like to do with these newsletters, for those of you who follow them, you know, is I like to describe the archetypes in terms of how we can embody them and how we can activate them in our own psyche over the 12 months of the year. Because when we bring the archetypes alive in us, we realize that they present to us a map of evolution or a map of ascension, and we can work with them and collaborate with them to bring ourselves further on in our own evolution. And when we bring consciousness to our evolution, and when we bring consciousness to natural law and natural cycles, we become co-collaborative conspirators in this great mad thing we call life. We're not just blindly bumbling along, having it have its way with us, but we're actually in charge and in control and in awareness, which is a lot more fun as far as I'm concerned. So that's my intention today, is to bring you into some awareness about how we can play with this archetype this month, what it means, what some of the intentions are that we can set. And I'm going to share with you a couple of meditations as well that might help you activate it and access it. So let's start to talk about a little bit about what it means. To contextualize Sagittarius, we need to look at the archetype that comes right before it, okay? The Scorpio archetype. According to esoteric astrology, Scorpio and Taurus create the axis of the human being. It's an axis that's described by this phrase, harmony through conflict. And it exists in the heart chakra, which is the ruler of the human kingdom. Scorpio and Taurus are that battle that defines our experience as human beings in form. The battle of duality, or the battle of birth and death. Imagine for a second Taurus, which is the archetype of birth. It births things into being. It creates form. It gets attached to stuff. It's like so concerned with its own security, with its own physical well-being. It's like the ultimate materialist, right? It is the flesh. It is the manifestation of us. So what do we create in Taurus? We create everything. We create attachments. We create addictions. We create beliefs. We create thought forms. We create paranoia. We create passion. We create love. We create whatever we want to create. But creation has to die at some point. Things can't stay around forever. So we have Scorpio, which is the opposite of Taurus, and Scorpio is the point of destruction of our creation. You know, when you're working with a psychotherapist or with your therapist, and you're like, I have this thing inside, this belief system that says, you know, when I want something, I can't have it. So I'm going to then I just won't want it first, because then if I don't want it, then it won't have a chance to not want me. And then, you know, and like on and on and on and on and on, or some kind of like psychological garbage goop, right? We go in there and we're like, this is the form. We identify the form and we're like, I want to destroy the form. I want to go in with my Scorpio and I want to take that form apart. Or I want to blow it out of the water, or I want to prove myself that it's not true. I want to kill it. Because in Taurus we create, and in Scorpio we kill, we die. So it's this constant battle as a human being that we have of creation and destruction. And like we're born and we die. It's literally as simple as that. But duality, when you're stuck in the lemniscat of duality, it's like a never-ending repetitive cycle. You can't get off a figure eight. You can't get off the lemniscat. It's the repetitive Maya. It's constant. And you'll notice that, you know, if you've worked with a psychologist or a psychotherapist for a number of years, you know, you go in there and you talk about your problems or you do your work, but does it ever really end? Is there an end point? Like I would say that, you know, while healing work is really important and transformation of our inner psyches and getting in there and looking at the shadow, it's all super, super important stuff. And this last month that we've been in Scorpio season, we've all been doing this. Oh my God. With Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, all of us has been facing into the shadow, and we've been facing into how do we take responsibility? How do we break through the patterns? How do we see what's really happening? All of this stuff has come up. But there's one more step in the equation of being human that we often miss. And that is the Sagittarius archetype. So the fourth chakra, the human kingdom, is not only ruled by Taurus, Scorpio, but it's also ruled by Sagittarius. So I would like to explain why this is and why this matters to us today. So if we have duality, and it's a lemniscate, and we're caught in it, the only way that we can create real balance and real harmony is by elevating above the duality to a third point and creating a triangle. So what creating a triangle does is it takes the back and forth, like it takes this constant need to balance back and forth, and it stabilizes it. It gives it structure. It gives it form. And it allows the points on the duality to come into real balance, into stillness. So Sagittarius is that third point on the triangle. Sagittarius as an archetype rules the third eye, which is called the seat of the soul by many ancient wisdom teachings. And when the third eye, which is associated with the pineal gland inside the brain, when it opens, what happens is you activate true sight. And so you can't open your pineal gland unless you are in the heart to start with. So the heart is the gate to the third eye. You have to actually be in heartfelt consciousness in order for the higher wisdom to open and for the intuition to open. But once you can open this, and once you can see clearly from this perspective, the duality balances out, and you come into a higher perspective. So it's kind of like you can see things from a distance, or you can see things from a higher place. So you contextualize, and that's why Sagittarius rules the truth. It rules higher mind. It rules philosophy. It rules the context. Gemini rules the content, and Sagittarius rules the context, or the umbrella, right? And physiologically, it rules the ability for us to see from on high and look down upon the human reality, look down upon the duality from a place of calm repose and reflectivity, rather than active engagement and addictive, repetitive nature, right? So the third eye is extremely important in many, many, many wisdom traditions, from Buddhism, Hinduism, even mystical Christianity and Judaism, the Kabbalah, ancient Egypt. Even the Hermeticists talked about this law. They call it the law of rhythm. And they describe how life is like this huge pendulum, and that we're always swinging back and forth, right? Which is the Taurus Scorpio axis. We're swinging back and forth. We're swinging from pleasure to pain. We're swinging from good to bad. There's just this constant back and forth duality, and that our moods and our mind and our bodies are privy to this swing. So, you'll notice that one day I'm really, really happy, and then the next day I'm miserable. Well, what's changed actually? Nothing has changed, but life is always moving. It's always a changing cycle. And in the Kabbalion, which is the ancient Hermetic teachings, so describing the ancient Hermetic teachings, they talk about how spiritual mastery comes when you're able to mentally elevate above that pendulum and gain control from the third eye, from the place of center and balance, so that you can witness the pendulum swing rather than being a part of it and letting it control you. Okay? So that's Sagittarius in a nutshell. In esoteric astrology, they call it the one-pointed disciple. One-pointed because the tip of the arrow of the Sagittarius glyph has to be pointing to God. That's the point of it. It's the intersection between self and source. It's the focus, 100% focus on higher truth and the light. That's the only way you can open the third eye. it's literally like a one pointed, focused, consistent, holding, like it like the energy holds, right? Like the whole focus has to be on that point of intersect between the divine and the human. And that sort of brings the whole system into balance. So that's what I'd like for us to think about this month on an esoteric level. So this is kind of like in the structure of consciousness, this is what's being opened, or this is the window that's available. And it's not that we're all going to sit there and go into our third eye and have like transcendental experiences. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But what I am suggesting is that the opportunity is here for us all to elevate to a higher state of consciousness, to a higher place of truth and wisdom inside ourselves, and to grow up in our perspective, to vision from a greater place our lives and our purpose and meaning and our intention. And there's a lot of power and potency in the ability to elevate to a greater perspective. And when I say elevate, I mean elevate out of the lower mind and into the higher mind. Okay, so our minds are dual in nature. They have a lower portion, which is connected to our astral body and our third chakra, second and third chakra. And the lower mind, ruled by Gemini, is very good at facts and figures and data and information, and it collects it and it gathers it and it knows everything and it labels everything and it communicates really clearly. The higher mind, which is the intuition, which we connect to through the heart, rules higher self, or it rules like higher articulated presence. It rules what's called the knowing field. I love how Mark Jones calls it the knowing field. That's a beautiful description of what the higher mind is capable of. It's capable of understanding things through understanding, knowing, through being, rather than through thinking. So the labeling is great when you have to actually speak about something. But if you don't have the intuition and the knowing, what are you speaking of? All you're doing is collecting data. You're collecting data, sifting through it, picking out what you want, and then giving it back. But the knowing is where wisdom comes from. So this month, you can practice some third eye meditations if you choose. But if we all just take the time just to at least become familiar with what is called the knowing field, and with our higher mind, I think we'll all be well on our way to using the archetype to its greatest potential. So what does it mean for us to connect to higher mind or higher wisdom or knowing? I thought I might kind of guide you through what it feels like to me, and that maybe that would help you in your journey with this month or during this full moon as well. So as I described, like the lower mind is the part of our mind that never really shuts up. It's constantly yabbering on, right? It's constantly concerned about something personal. Generally speaking, it's concerned with making sure we are surviving, making sure we're getting our needs met, being a little angry if we're not, trying to figure out how we're going to go about it if we're not. It's a very selfish, ruminatory pattern, right? And the lower mind kind of doesn't stop. Like it's very difficult to turn it off. It's constantly going. And it's constantly connecting to emotional detritus as well. Like it's very much in touch with the part of our body that is in pain, or that is suffering, or that is in the darkness. And it's trying to like figure out how to unwind that or try to fix that in some way. So it's very self-ruminatory and selfish, if we can put it that way. The higher mind just doesn't actually talk. It really doesn't. It is silent. The higher mind is clear. It's clear presence. It's knowing. It knows. So the way I go in and out of higher mind, lower mind is first of all, you have to stay in. You have to call yourself into alignment and become aware of this part of your body. Like become aware of your high heart, which is a little bit of a feeling like it's kind of up and back in your heart chakra. It's kind of like it's an articulated place that's a little bit up and inside your heart chakra. And when you come into that place, what should happen is the back of your neck should elongate, actually. And there should be this feeling of like click, 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 like all of your vertebrae are coming into correct alignment. And there's this almost like the occiput, which is this little divot here at the very base of your, or at the top of your neck, at the very base of your hairline, it opens, like it literally like tips up. And like your neck kind of goes up, and the occiput opens, and then there's a corresponding opening right here and right here. So when this opens, when the occiput opens, the third eye kind of articulates. There's like a point in the center of your mind that kind of expands. And then all of a sudden you feel like you're free. You feel like you're outside of your head. What you're actually outside of is the mental chitta-chatta field, which is a literal field, like a mind. I can literally see the mind field when I'm very deep into meditation and I open my eyes. I can literally see it. I can feel it energetically. And we get pulled into it and we think it's real. We think it's the truth. It's not. Trust me. It's not the truth. It's just one stage of the game. It's not where we need to hang out all the time. And this month is when we get to learn about the difference between the lower mind and the higher mind, so that we can be in control and we can be sovereign and we can balance out the pendulum swing that always has us going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So if this physiological description doesn't help you access higher mind or just like flip that on, you'll notice when you get into it, by the way, that all of a sudden everything seems very spacious, and that it's like open, like there's like an empty openness, and there's no reason to fill it. Like there's not an objective when you're there. The objective is simply to be there and then to walk through life from that place. So the objective, let me say that again, is not to get anything while you're there. It's not to serve anything. It's not to have a need met. It's simply to be in that and then walk through life from that place. And when you're walking through life attuned to higher truth and wisdom, attuned to your intuition, what happens on the outside just happens, right? You will know exactly what you need to do if you're connecting to your intuition very clearly and if you're in your heart. And that's what it means to be in the moment. That's what it means to be present in the moment and in alignment with truth. So that's kind of where we're all heading, I would hope, at least where I'm heading, or at least I'm trying to head there. I have a very active mind because I'm mercurial. My ruling planet is Mercury, and I'm a double Gemini. So for me, and my south node is in Gemini, my north node is in Sagittarius. So this journey between the articulated mental construct plane and the higher plane of higher mind, this is where I play all the time. This is like my entire life is this. This is what I do all the time. And I'm always trying to figure out new ways to get myself into that and hold it. Because it really is a matter of putting your will force upon it, okay? Putting your will force on that place and holding that frequency, holding that state. So there's one other meditation that I wanted to share with you quickly. It's a little bit more of a mantra and an intention. It's more of like an internal meditation rather than a physiological state. And that is, if you can put yourself for a second, just imagine that there is a place where yourself meets your source. When I say source, this is a generic term for what I would experience, what I do experience as just being pure light. I come from this place which is absolutely beautiful light, right? This is God to me. This is source to me. And when myself, that which I experience as me, or my will force or my presence touches that source, there's an intersection point, isn't there? There's a place where they combine or where they connect. That is the one pointed focus on God. That is the point of Sagittarius, that intersect point between self and source. And if you can train your mind to focus 100% on that intersection point and then walk through life with that intersection point clear and like really, really get it and lock it in, you're creating the triangle, okay? You're creating the triangle. It is enough to simply practice the following. And I got this meditation from Alan Oken, my teacher in Bali, who taught me a lot about Sagittarius. He's the disseminator of much ancient wisdom, which I'm so grateful to have received. He talks about it in this way. He talks about the higher mind as being, and Sagittarius, as being a periscope. So imagine that you are in a submarine, and the submarine is the Taurus Scorpio axis. It's like underneath the water, and it's, and it's kind of it's kind of underneath there, and it's always sort of like going and trying to get into trouble. There's always something happening. It's like all that chaos. You lift up the periscope above the water, you put yourself into the periscope, and you watch from up there. You keep yourself above the water, and you put your mind higher mind, and you put yourself into the witness, and you perceive and witness what's happening at the lower level. So that's another visualization exercise that you can practice when you're walking around. Just imagine that you've got like this periscope that's like kind of like about this far up above your head, and you can kind of like hang out up there and watch. It's fascinating. This is how I kind of trained myself a few years ago to really, really activate this for myself. So the periscope exercise works really well as well. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you guys. There's a lot of other stuff about Sagittarius that I could talk about right now, but for some reason, this is all I'm interested in saying. If you want to research a little bit more about Sag, there's an old blog entry I did from 2018, which is on the triple stages of the Sagittarius evolution. So if any of you are Sagittarians or have a lot of this archetype in your chart, I highly recommend you go and read that, or do a little bit of research for yourself. Sagittarius is an interesting archetype because it has 3 stages of evolution. And I think it's fascinating, just like Scorpio has 3 stages as well. So bringing it back to this new moon, when we look at the constellation of the planets that are happening tomorrow morning, what we'll see is we have the moon and the sun conjunct at 4 degrees of Sag. We have Mars in Scorpio, sextiling Jupiter in Sag. So the ruler of Sagittarius is still in Sagittarius. It's about to go into Capricorn. This is the end. Like we have been working on our dreams. We have been working on our higher truth. We have been working on our vision for what is good and what needs to happen in our own lives and on the planet. We've been working so hard on this all year long. We've been working on understanding our limitation and really trying to connect ourselves to something beyond ourselves, so that the vision that we're living and what we're bringing forth, our dreams that we're trying to manifest, so that they're in integrity, right? Because Jupiter and Sagittarius can go way off the deep end in terms of extravagance and exuberance and gluttony. So it's had this wonderful connection to Neptune all year, this wonderful square to Neptune all year, which has been calling us back to source, calling us back to truth, and calling us back to wisdom, so that our jovial expansion energy is rooted in something more purposeful, more humanitarian. But tomorrow morning, we have the power of Mars in Scorpio sextiling that Jupiter at last degree of Sag, 28 degrees of Sag, right conjunct the galactic center. So we have this incredible ability to take assertive action, Mars in Scorpio, to make our dreams come true. Now, both of those planets are also connecting to Uranus in Taurus. So the Jupiter is trining and Mars is opposing Uranus in Taurus. And the Uranus and Taurus energy is really calling us to break the patterns and the attachments and the forms, Taurus's forms, that no longer serve us, to break the old ways and move into something new. And if you can see what's happening in the world right now with climate change, that's definitely a Uranus in Taurus activation, right? That like Uranus and Taurus is bringing forth all of this information about how we can be on this planet in new liberated ways, so that we can move forward instead of moving backwards, right? When we have the Pluto and the Saturn conjunction in Capricorn, which is helping us to see how the old forms have hurt us and how we can make changes to the structures and to the bureaucracy and to the politics and to the forms that we've created at the societal level. But Uranus in Taurus is all about new technology, and it's about moving forward, and it's about liberating us from materialism. It's about liberating us from a need to survive based on practices that hurt rather than elevate and liberate us, to survive in more unique ways, or more egalitarian ways, or more, in revolutionary ways that can help us move forward on the planet with security and without hurting it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm so intelligible at the moment. The point I'm trying to make is that taking assertive action to make our dreams come true, particularly when those dreams will liberate us from outdated forms or ways of being that are no longer serving us, right, is kind of what our new moon is about tomorrow. So it's about vision, it's about higher truth, it's about connecting to our intuition, and it's about saying, here is my goal. Here is my path forward, and I'm going to plant a seed right now that enables me to hold that vision, hold that truth, hold that philosophy, and move forward with bold action into the future. Okay, so that's kind of the energy as far as I can see it. And we're heading very quickly into Capricorn season and into the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto. So I'm fascinated by that, and we're watching the world stage heat up, aren't we? With the protests and like the rebellions and the uprisings and all of the things that are happening on our planet politically. So this stuff is heating up leading into January. So I'm really interested to see what happens. But if we could all do our work this month to kind of take responsibility for ourselves, to try and elevate into a higher mind or higher truth, to try and make choices that are purposeful and meaningful, and to take bold action that helps move us forward in our lives and the collective forward, I will be so grateful. And that's it. That's all I got for you today. I hope this wasn't too long, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.